So, with a lot of stuff going on with Mandalorians lately, and between The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, I figured it was a good time to take a look at exactly what happened to Mandalore after the Clone Wars, specifically Mandalore under the Empire. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. And before I begin, just throwing this out there that this will not include any spoilers for the Book of Boba Fett, so if you haven't seen it yet, you're good here. So we've seen the Imperial Occupation of Mandalore mentioned a lot in The Mandalorian, and even gotten to see it a little bit on screen in Star Wars Rebels. But we don't know a ton about how it ended, so I figured today we'll take a look at what we know so far about the Empire's control of Mandalore. So let's just start where all of this begins, at the very end of the Clone Wars. In the final hours of the Clone Wars, members of the 501st Legion were dispatched to Mandalore to remove Maul from power there, basically kicking Death Watch off the planet and liberating the planet for the Republic and for the Mandalorian government in exile. This operation successfully drove Death Watch underground, putting the planet under Republic control. With the capture of Darth Maul, the campaign was declared finished, and Republic forces likely began making preparations to leave Mandalore. We know that around this time, Ahsoka Tano left with Darth Maul to head back to the Republic to make him stand trial for his crimes, and a good number of Republic forces were still on Mandalore, beginning to make preparations to depart. It's around this time, however, that Order 66 is declared, the Republic is replaced with the Galactic Empire, and the political landscape of the galaxy changed basically overnight. My basic assumption is that with the transition from the Galactic Republic to the Galactic Empire, that these Republic troops became Imperial troops and didn't leave. Maybe some of them left, but maintaining control over Mandalore would have been a very key strategic goal of the Empire. Not only is Mandalore home to some of the fiercest fighters in the galaxy, fighters that could pose a significant threat were they to side with a rebellion, but it is also positioned fairly significantly along several major hyperlanes. This means that under Imperial control, Mandalore itself became a key Imperial stronghold. To make maintaining control of Mandalore easier, Imperial forces tended to ally themselves with several Mandalorian groups. These Mandalorian groups were generally what was left of Death Watch, ironically, the force that the troops had been sent there to remove, and Imperials began sort of pulling the puppet strings on Mandalore's sort of government at that time. Now, an interesting tidbit is it's likely that the occupation of Mandalore was still pretty slow burn compared to the rest of the galaxy. For example, the Bad Batch has shown us that across the galaxy, Imperial forces basically rolled into a planet and locked it down almost immediately. There was a very sharp difference from life under the Republic versus life under the Empire. Imperial military forces became far more present in daily life. This was likely not the case on Mandalore. I would assume with the military capabilities of the local population, there was a concerted effort by the Galactic Empire to make their takeover a little bit more gradual, as to not shock the people of Mandalore into a resistance. So my assumption is a token force of Imperial stormtroopers would have remained there, and would have been ramped up over time until they get to the state that we see them in Rebels, where there is a significant Imperial presence on the world, and they are being backed up by several local factions. In fact, I would imagine that the Empire would deal with the Mandalorians a lot like they dealt with crime syndicates. Basically, it's easier to sort of sit back and let them run things while the Empire pulled the strings, than to actually put boots on the ground, fight these factions out of control, and maintain control of a system themselves. However, we know that that didn't last forever. As we see in Star Wars Rebels, several elements of the Rebel Alliance in their early days were able to rally various clans from across Mandalore and its moons, and lead a campaign that would become known as the Mandalorian Civil War. This would see Mandalore sort of falling back under the control of Mandalorians, throwing off a lot of Imperial forces from the world. Now, it'd be my guess that the Empire's retaliation wasn't long after that. We know that at some point between that event and the fall of the Empire at the Battle of Jakku, Mandalore was very thoroughly purged. In an event that the Mandalorians call the Great Purge or the Night of a Thousand Tears, depending on who you ask, Imperial forces basically glassed the world, for lack of a better term. It seems like Imperial TIE bombers were carrying out carpet bombing runs, and that Imperial forces then swept through the Rebel to clean up any survivors. This event sent the remainder of Mandalore's sort of warrior culture into hiding. Mandalorians were cast to the galaxy since their homeworld had become uninhabitable. This is how we get the situations that we see during the events of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, where Mandalore is this distant goal that's still not under their control, but maybe someday it can be back under the control of the Mandalorians where it belongs. But at the moment, we don't know a ton about what happened to Mandalore sort of right around the Night of 1,000 Tears. I'm sure we'll learn more about it over the next year, and I'm sure at some point I'll remake this video, but for now, that's basically all we know. Still, the Empire's takeover of the galaxy was generally jarring, and if you'd like to learn about why the galaxy as a whole kind of supported the Empire's takeover, at least at first, I'll leave a link up here to my video on that. And I want you to let me know down in the comments whether you think that The Mandalorian and some of these other shows taking place around that same area are building up to the liberation of Mandalore, or do you think that's just kind of a pipe dream of mine? And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in Star Wars, leave it down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.